Surah Yunus, a brief glimpse of the surahs of the third chapter. On Surah Tawbah, the previous surah, ended the second chapter of the Quran, as referred to in the foreword of this exegesis. Now from Surah Yunus begins the third chapter. It ends on Surah Al-Nur. The following 14 surahs are Makkan: Yunus, Hud, Yusuf, Al-Ra'd, Ibrahim, Al-Hijr, Al-Nahl, Bani Israel, Al-Kahf, Maryam, Taha, Al-Anbiya, Al-Hajj and Al-Mu'minun. Only the last one, Surah Al-Nur, is Madinan. Just as readers have witnessed the paired phenomenon of surahs in the previous two chapters, they will also observe it in the current one. Surah Al-Nur, the last surah, apparently seems to be a lone one. But as shall be explained, it has the status of a supplement to Surah Al-Mu'minun, which precedes it. The glad tidings of success in this world and the next given to the believers in Surah Al-Mu'minun are conditional to a certain character which is the essential consequence of faith. In Surah Al-Nur, this character and conduct is further delineated. In this way, the traits of a righteous society are fully highlighted in comparison to an evil one. Moreover, God's promise for such a society is also unequivocally mentioned in it thus:
وعد الله الذين آمنوا منكم وعملوا الصالحات ليستخلفنهم في الأرض كما استخلف الذين من قبلهم وليمكنن لهم دينهم الذي ارتضى لهم وليبدلنهم من بعد خوفهم أمنا.
God's promise with those among you who have professed faith and done righteous deeds is that he shall grant them authority in this land the way he had granted it to those before them. And he shall establish this religion that he has chosen for them, and after this state of their fear, he shall transform it into peace. 24:55. Some people regard Surah Al-Hajj to be Madinan, but this opinion is not correct. Since the last surahs of this chapter were revealed very close to migration, they do reflect the Madinan period at some instances. But these surahs are Makkan with respect to their tone and content. Some verses of Surah Al-Hajj do belong to the Madinan period, but in its collective capacity, the surah is Makkan, as shall be explained in its exegesis. If a Makkan surah contains some verses that belong to the Madinan period in the capacity of further elucidation of a certain topic, then this does not mean that whole surah is Madinan. There are several such surahs in the Quran which contain Madinan verses, but they have been regarded to be Makkan with respect to their meanings and tone. If this chapter is repeatedly reflected on, one can clearly see that there is one common element that is explained in all its surahs in different styles: the conflict between truth and falsehood that had arisen in Arabia because of the Prophet's preaching will ultimately end on his victory and that of his companions, and on the humiliation and defeat of the Quraysh. In other words, it can be said that this chapter warns the Quraysh and gives glad tidings to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his companions. Through arguments drawn from human nature, intellect, the world within and around human beings, and through the signs found in history and in the system of this world, it is explained to the Quraysh that the truth has come to them. If they continue to oppose it, then soon the time will arrive when they will see its horrific consequences from the very eyes. They too will meet the terrible fate met by previous nations who denied their respective messengers. Signs and remnants of the destruction that teach an exemplary lesson are present in their own land. In a similar way, the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his companions are urged to exercise patience and perseverance and adhere to piety. They are told that the truth they are advocating will triumph one day. Arguments and signs drawn from the world around and that within them, as well as from the history of nations, substantiate that they will achieve this victory. However, it is the established practice of God that before the truth triumphs, its advocates have to pass through various phases of trials. Thus, they too will have to necessarily undergo these trials. If they pass through them through courage and perseverance, then success is theirs in this world as well as in the next. Verse 27 of Surah Ibrahim states,
يثبت الله الذين آمنوا بالقول الثابت في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ويضل الله الظالمين.
This is a brief look on the contents of this third chapter. Now, we will explain every surah independently. The first of these is Yunus. It follows the same pattern of explanation as the previous ones. First its theme will be stated, followed by an analysis of its meanings. After that, each verse will be elucidated one by one. Only God can grant me the urge and will to undertake this onerous task.